Right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I would like to call to order the February 1st Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Staff, can you please call the roll?
At this time, I am only asking those TAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. The light will turn red. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TAC representative. Jim Bell, Naresh Makavarapu, Gary Dunmeyer, Jason Kaufman,
Here.
Karen Gardner-Young,
Here.
Jamie Brown,
Here.
Terrence Bailey,
Here.
John Paul O'Connor,
Here.
Alex Hansen,
Here.
Valerio Ochio,
Here.
Kenny Wilson,
Here.
Gary Sypek, Brian Davis,
Jorge Perez for Brian Davis.
Yash Nagal,
Here.
Aaron Hoffman,
Here.
Joyce Kai, Lorraine Cargill,
Vicky Katanis for Lorraine Cargill.
Here, sorry, this is Joyce. I just unmuted.
Thank you, Joyce. We'll have
Thank
you
you.
join in a moment once we permit virtual
Sure.
attendees.
Sure.
Thomas Hernandez,
Here.
Roberto Treviso,
Here.
Kim Delaney, Kim Glass Castro,
Here.
Christopher Marsh,
Here.
Michael Odell,
Jonathan Reinsvold here for Michael Odell.
John Crane,
Here.
Natalie Crowley,
Here.
Melissa Ackert. Oh, sorry, Mo Elturk.
Melissa Acker for Mo.
Thank you. And then for the record, Naresh Makavarapu has joined us in person.
Thank you. As noted, Chair Al-Turk is present, and I will actually need to leave the meeting myself at approximately 10 a.m. So pursuant to section 3.3D of the TPA operating procedures and in absence of the chair and the vice chair, the representatives shall elect a pro chair Tem and complete all the other duties of the chair. My apologies. We'll try to be efficient this morning in the hour that we have. So as such, the floor is open for nominations for the chair pro tem, who will be starting at approximately 10 a.m. Staff, please call the roll. Oh, excuse me, there's nominations.
So the floor is open for nominations, so you'll only be serving for this one meeting. You can also self-nominate.
I nominate Kim Delaney since she's next to Crowley, Natalie Crowley. No, sorry, just Kim Delaney nominate her.
Second.
Chair, it looks like there are no other
Yeah,
nominations.
if there's no other nominations.
I can call a roll just to confirm, or you can call
I
for-
think let's
yeah.
just move along. I think
Perfect.
we're good. So do we need to take a vote on
Just
this?
say all those in favor.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Kim Delaney is the chair pro tem upon my departure. Thank you. All right, staff, are there any other modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, the following members are requesting TAG permission to participate remotely. Both Jim Bell and Joyce Kai. Jim is out due to ongoing medical treatment, and Joyce Kai due to staffing shortages at the school district.
TAC members, are there any objections to these members participating remotely? All right, seeing none, these members are approved to participate remotely. Amanda, if you could please note their attendance in the minutes.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, may I please have a motion to approve for the minutes of December 7th?
I'll second.
Sorry, I have a comments.
Yes, Alex.
Um,
I'm sorry I missed that. Forgive me, I'm
Yeah.
my first time sharing.
so on item 2C, the motion to recommend endorsement of the draft tentative work program. Again, this is the minutes for last meeting. I have a couple of comments and I would like some revisions. That would be my recommendation. First, is a statement, they're saying Alex Hansen asked about Service Plaza electric chargers in the minutes. My comment, again, if people remember, had to do with electric vehicle charging stations and the need and the planning for including more stations in the service plazas, and then others also indicated something similar. When the statement just says electric chargers, first thing that anybody who reads these things is this is the chargers to charge your phone or your laptop. Again, the comment and the discussion was electric vehicle charging stations. I would like for the minutes to address that. My second comment, which is a bigger picture comment, has to do with, we spent almost an hour and a half on this item, a good hour almost discussing the issue of 7 LI projects being removed from the work program as a result of additional funding required by another project. We had significant concerns about the process and the implications of the removal of those projects. Everything, all that we have here is a sentence just saying that member discussion ensued about funds being allocated to State Road 7 instead of to the local initiatives projects. While I understand the need for minutes to be succinct, I think this is way too little detail. It doesn't fully reflect the healthy discussion that we had about this, the concerns that many members expressed. I mean, and the outcome of that was that we had a motion that was passed almost unanimously, in which people wanted to re-include or include those projects into the work program. So my suggestion would be that this be revised to reflect some of the discussion and the concerns that many municipalities express about the way this item transpired and what was being presented to the committee. Again, I don't think that this fully reflects the discussion that took place at the time.
TAC members, are there any comments or objections to Alex's modifications? Yes, Terrence.
I think I agree with Alex, and I think just due to the nature of, to your point, an hour and a half that would need to be summarized, we may want to consider tabling these minutes and giving the staff another run at it, so we can see it in the next meeting to see if what they've added is sufficient. Because if we pass it and just have them edit it, you may not like it. So let's punt till next meeting, see what they got, and then hopefully it'll be sufficient.
I would agree. That would be my recommendation. If we can table this item and ask staff to revise them, again, dealing with the issue of electric vehicle charging stations, and then more detail on the discussion that took place on this.
Okay, so noted. TAC members, any objections to tabling the minutes for further modifications of staff so that staff can incorporate and elaborate on Alex Hansen's comments for action next meeting? Yes. John Paul. Oh, sorry. John, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, when you go through the minutes, Alex made a statement that that 7 LI projects were removed from the work program for the State Road 7 project. And that's not exactly accurate. 7 projects were not programmed into the work program, the new 5th year.
Sorry, they were in the list and then they were not in the list. That to me is the definition of removal. So.
Okay.
It may be
Point
semantic, but
noted for Mr. Crane. I'm sorry, I can't see your name tag. Yes, Roberta, sorry.
I do agree with Alex's and Terrence's recommendation. And I also wanted to note for the record that I was present at the December 7th meeting. I'm shown to be absent during that meeting. So I want to record
Absent. Yes,
that as
okay.
well. Thank you.
And the minutes currently do not reflect that absence?
They show me as absent.
Okay, okay. Alex, you still have your card up? Are you finished? Okay, all right. So we are going to need a vote by the TAC members to postpone the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimously carries. Moving on. All right, instructions on how to provide public comments have been included in the agenda. Staff, are there any general comments that have been received?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, moving on. At this time, I would like to invite any TAC members to provide comments on items not on the agenda. For members participating remotely, please utilize the raise hand feature in the Zoom platform and remember to unmute your microphone once you are recognized. Terrence.
Thank you. I'll be brief. In the last meeting, we did have a very robust discussion. And there was a point where I had called for the question. And according to Robert's Rules of Order, when the question is called, if it receives a second, all discussion is supposed to stop and the voting should occur immediately. That didn't happen. And I make that point in that I know at one point we had gotten a sort of cheat sheet on Robert's Rules of Order, so this meeting can operate effectively and efficiently. If staff could find that, maybe redistribute it or reproduce it. People may have it back in their files, just so that we all know sort of the operating protocol of Robert's Rule of Order and how the meeting's gonna flow going forward. That's it.
Thank you, Terrence. Any other comments from the board members? Okay, I think that's an excellent suggestion, staff. If you wouldn't mind sending and circulating Robert's rules, I think that'll help the efficiency in the meeting. Thank you, Terrence.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, moving on to item F, the TAC liaison report. I'd like to now invite Andrew, if he's here. I'm sorry, Nathan to provide an update. Are there, staff, are there any public comments at this time?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, do any committee do any committee members have any comments or questions on the liaison's report? I think that there's a presentation of the liaison report that needs to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Nathan George, just a reminder, I'm your new LRTP coordinator. I'm going to go off script a little bit and give you a few additional highlights to what's in the report. So in December, the governing board approved our selection process for the LRTP team and wanted to inform this committee that we have kicked off. We've met with our consultant team and we're in the process of, early stages of kicking off the LRTP process. So just wanted to give you that update sort of unofficially, and we'll be bringing you a lot of details as we get into the development of the 2050 LRTP plan. And we're really excited to get that process started. Another item that just hit our inboxes this morning is that the Safe Streets for All grants have been awarded. That notice went out this morning. So there were a number of awardees around the region. So just wanted to acknowledge that those awards have been posted. And for the folks who submitted, encourage you to take a look at the awards list. And keep an eye out for the NOFO that will come out in the spring, or is anticipated in April. So back to the report, wanted to touch on a few items here. Safe Street Summit is tomorrow and Friday. We're really excited. A number of staff are going to be attending that. This year's theme is Back to the Streets, and looking forward to seeing any members who are able to attend at that summit over the next few days. We also wanted to recognize and congratulate City of Westlake for their adoption of Vision Zero policy. They're the 12th municipality to adopt a Vision Zero resolution in our region. I would say if we could recognize you guys with a round of applause, I think that would be appropriate. That's the first step in really embracing Vision Zero. And we have a highlight here in a minute on how TPA is going to help everybody get a little closer to Vision Zero. So we'll see that in just a minute. All right, there are a number of opportunities to learn more about these grants that are upcoming. So the first is a US DOT virtual event. So they're going to be hosting a webinar on February 8th between 3 and 4 o'clock. So that'll be a good opportunity to learn more about upcoming grants directly from the folks at DOT. And then FDOT will be hosting a series of events, 2 in person. First is February 15th, and the second will be February 16th, first in Miami and the second in Fort Lauderdale. So we'd encourage everybody who's interested in those discretionary grant funding opportunities to take advantage of these 2 opportunities to learn more about upcoming funding. And next. Our next TPA Governing Board meeting is February 16th at 9 a.m. And if you need more information, the URL is here on the screen. We also have we will be closing the TPA annual funding programs application processes. So those grants are open through February 17th. We've met with a number of you for your pre-application meetings. If you need additional details, please do reach out to staff and we'll be happy to work with you in advance of that date and look forward to closing that and starting the review process on everybody's applications. We want to recognize that March is Florida Bicycle Month. That's a very important opportunity to recognize bicycling throughout the state. We have several events that are ongoing at TPA to recognize Bike Month. The first is a webinar on March 7th, and the second is a bike ride on the 31st. There will be more details on the website. So please, if you're interested in participating in those, take a look at our palmbeachtpa.org/events to get more details, and we'll have additional details shared later in the meeting. We also want to highlight for everybody the TPA public participation plan has been posted to our website. It's available for public review and comments. So that review period is through March 16th. We encourage you to go to the website, take a look at the updates and materials, provide us with your comments. We'd really like to incorporate any feedback that we can before that goes to the governing board for adoption. It's available at palmbeachtpa.org/PPP. There will be an upcoming governing board committee training workshop that's going to be held on February 24th from 9 to 11 a.m. So wanted to provide that as a highlight. And then we want to give you a save the date. So as I mentioned, on the Vision Zero topic, we're going to be having two events that are TPA hosted workshops, a Complete Streets workshop on the morning of March 24th, and then a Vision Zero workshop that will be the morning of April 28th. So we look forward to seeing a number of folks come in for those workshops and having a more robust conversation around those topics of Complete Streets and Vision Zero, and helping our communities prepare for those necessary policies and adoption of action plans. So we look forward to having those discussions with you all. And that concludes our liaison report. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan. Are there any public comment items on this item? Yes, recognize the Executive Director, Valerie.
Good morning. Thank you, and great report, Nathan. I just wanted to jump in because it is breaking news. We just found this out about the Safe Streets for All, the first round of grants that were announced. We provided letters of support, but I just want to announce, in case it might be news to some of you, West Palm Beach was awarded $280,000 for Safe Streets for All action plan for Vision Zero. Palm Beach County Safe Streets and Roads for All Vision Zero action plan, about $639,000. Green Acres, $150,000 also for a Vision Zero action plan. Wellington, $200,000 for a Safe Streets for All Vision Zero action plan, and Boca Raton, $300,000 for a Vision Zero action plan. So very exciting. The next announcement is going to be in April, as Nathan mentioned. I think this is going to align really nicely with our Vision Zero action plan workshop. I know many municipalities have adopted Vision Zero resolutions, including Westlake. Congrats to our most recent. So we're up to about 12, but we want our partners and municipalities to take that next step of actually doing an action plan. And that's what that workshop will be about. But we'll also talk about this new round of funding. It's 1.8 or 1.1 billion that's anticipated to be announced for this next new round of funding for Safe Streets for All. So great opportunity, not only for actual safety projects, but also Vision Zero action plans. So funding for that for planning. So just wanted to jump in just because we just found this out about like a minute ago or two. So congrats to all of you who applied and who were awarded. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Do any committee members have any comments on the TAC liaison report? All right, seeing none, we are moving on. We are moving on
Madam
to
Chair.
action items.
Madam Chair, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm
For the
sorry.
record, I'd just like to note that Gary Dunmeyer and Andrew Gamboa Villamil have joined us in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to item number 2 on the agenda, action items. This is the motion to recommend adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP Amendment number 3 to the TPA fiscal year 2023 to 27. I would like to invite Andrew to the TPA Deputy Director to present this item, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So this is amendment number 3 to the Transportation Improvement Program. Before you today are 3 requests from FDOT for amendments. So it's 3 projects. There's 1 current project and then 2 additional new projects added to the tip. So one is a tip amendment needed. It's really for larger changes to projects. So when you're adding or deleting a project, major cost increases, and then larger scope of work changes. So changes in the length or larger scope changes when adding through lanes. And then also if there was change in a project phase initiation date. And as a reminder, it only impacts the products in the amendment. So no other products are in this amendment today that are in the tip. So the first project for you today is the Lindell Boulevard project. It's a local initiatives project in Delray Beach. And this one is on Lindell Boulevard and Southwest 10th Avenue. And for this one, we're changing the proposed changes are funds being added, federal funds being added. That takes away a little bit of the local reimbursement that they have to put in, their share of the money. And then also changes the length. So it's actually really a clerical change. This was always the original limits, but we had it wrong in the tip and then also the state work program. So the true limits for it are Lindell Boulevard and Southwest 10th Ave from west of South Dixie Highway to Linton Boulevard. And we're showing that on the map on the right. What the limits are currently in the tip, which are wrong, was going from Federal Highway up to Southwest 10th. So it totally didn't include that northern portion in the current location in the tip. So that's what part of the change. And then also with that is changing the length to reflect that as well. So going from 0.58 miles to 1.3 miles. These are both clerical errors. So the actual total cost of the product is still the same. That cost estimate was correct. It's just some updates when it comes to the length and the scope location. And then the last portion is there's a funding increase. So there's an increase in the federal share of funding available that we have in this fiscal year for fiscal year 2023, able to increase that reimbursement by $2.4 million. Also, you all requested in the past about having those funding codes broken down in the TIP amendment. So you'll see in the first page of the TIP amendment packet that we lay out what all the funding codes are for these amendments. Next are 2 additional products that are new to the program up for amendment. The first is statewide rumble strips. This is a project that's going to be statewide, but the one you're seeing in the tip today only covers a portion in District 4 for Palm Beach County and Broward County. And this adds design funds in fiscal year 2023 of $75,000. And then next is Palm Tran 5310 operating assistance. So the FTA 5310 funds provide transportation services to meet the special transportation needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities. So this is adding additional $50,000 in FTA funds. And then you'll also see that local matching funds in there of another $50,000. Also going in fiscal year 23. That's really all I have. It's those 3 products, so I can take any questions.
Staff, are there any public comments at on this item?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. Opening it up to TAC committee member comments on this item. Yes, Jason.
Hello. First off, just want to say thank you to FDOT for providing the additional funds. And then just point of clarification, the map shown has the project going into the intersection with Linton Boulevard. We're actually, the project is ending about 300 feet south of Linton Boulevard. Thank you.
I want to bring back on the screen. You said how many feet? 300 feet south of
Approximately 300 feet, yes.
we can probably make that change and put it into the final version for the board as well, if that's the correct ones.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments at this time? Okay, I need a motion to recommend adoption of the fiscal year 2023-2027 tip amendment number 3.
Motion to recommend adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to action item number 2B. It is the targets for federal performance measures. I'm again inviting Andrew to present this item, please.
Okay, so this next one is for federal performance measures that we are required to set targets for. And so we have performance measures that were adopted into our 2045 long-range transportation plan. They're under our goals, safe, efficient, connected, and multimodal. There's also the first goal of preserve the system. You can actually find the full list of all the federal measures and the local ones that we set on our website in the LRTP. And then also we keep this palmbeachtpa.org/PM updated. So you'll see the ongoing up-to-date data when it comes to how we're tracking of that. So the reason why we have performance measures is to really track our progress towards our goals and objectives in the LRTP. And then also the ones for you today are ones that are required by the federal government. So the state has to set targets. Palm Trend also has to set targets on a few, and then the metropolitan plan organizations are required to also set targets. So which federal performance measures are required to set targets for and measure? We have roadway safety. So those are fatal and serious injury crashes on the roadway network. There's bridge condition on the national highway system, pavement condition on the national highway system, system performance, which is travel time reliability, also on the national highway system. And then there's transit safety measures that Palm Trend has to set, and also transit asset management for Palm Trend. And so many of these are 2- and 4-year targets, the bridge conditions and system performance. And then we set yearly targets for roadway safety. The ones that we're going through today are the top 4. So roadway safety, bridge, pavement, and system performance. We'll come back later to you all with updates for setting targets for transit and transit asset management. So the safety roadway ones that we're required to measure include fatalities, the rate of those fatalities, which is measured by 100 million vehicle miles traveled, serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries, and then the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. What we set in the past, so this is something that we've been doing annually since first required back in 2018, the first time we were supposed to set targets. We've set a target of 0 each year from 2018 all the way to 2022. FDOT statewide has also set a target of 0. And then also wanted to mention that we have a Vision Zero action plan that was updated in 2021 to have actions that go towards trying to meet these targets. And so this is a large table, but this is a summary of the data for safety. There's more information in your backup and then also on that website. But this is showing all those performance measures for safety and then the average over 2012 to 2016, so that annual average. And then you can see that the most recent 5 years of 2017 to 2021. And then the last column there for years is 2022, and that's just the numbers that are preliminary from Signal 4 Analytics, but it just gives you a sort of a understanding of what we're looking like for the most recent year that hasn't been finalized. Overall, for trends, we are trending upwards when it comes to fatalities. Over the past 10 years, so we're seeing increases and continue to see increases in fatalities and also the fatality rate. We are seeing reductions in the total amount of serious injuries and the rate of those. And then the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries overall has trended a little bit upwards, but at a slower rate compared to all fatalities and serious injuries. And then the last columns we're showing are, again, is we set a Vision Zero target in 2022. The state has also set a target of Vision Zero in 2023. And so our recommendation for you all as staff is to continue on with the Vision Zero approach and to set a target of 0 in 2023, realizing that no death is acceptable. Next performance measure is bridge condition. high level, this is rated 1 through 9. This is the same standard that everyone in the nation uses. That's set, and it's rated for the substructure, the superstructure, and the deck. Here's a picture of State Road 80 bridge, Southern Boulevard Bridge, that will be completed this year, sort of showing you where that's at. So any one of those measures, whatever the lowest measure is, that's really what they show with as a bridge condition. So if it's in poor condition, it would show up as a poor condition for the bridge overall. And here's the data for most recent data we have for Palm Beach County when it comes to bridge condition. So the first one is measuring the bridges on the NHS in good condition, and we're at 82%. And then National Highway System bridges in poor condition, and we're at around 1%. That 1%, that's actually it's by total deck area, and the 1% in poor condition right now is actually under construction. That's that US 1 bridge over the Loxahatchee River up in the Jupiter area. So that one is going to be replaced in the next few years here. The state has set targets of greater than 50% for good condition and less than 10% in poor condition. They just updated these targets, and that's what they're setting for 2023 and 2025. We're also required to set 2-year and 4-year targets, and we are recommending to go with the state target when it comes to good condition. And then on poor condition, we're recommending to stay with the same target we've had in the past, which is 5%, less than 5% in poor condition. And so for those who were here last time around, back when we first adopted these in our LRTP, there's discussion about 10% being a pretty high number for poor condition. And since we were already very low at 1% or below that, it was a recommendation, I believe, by the TAC to move forward with a lower percentage target of 5%. What the state has said is recently in discussion with them, they haven't changed this measure from the last time around. So they've stayed at 50% and 10%. That was the targets they had last time, and it's the ones they're continuing forward with based on the increasing age of the bridges over time and the amount of money they have available. They still felt like that was a good target for them to have, is 50 and 10. Next is pavement condition. And so they measure multiple items on this one, but it's roughness, rutting, faulting, cracking. They all have their own type of way of measuring those. And again, here's the same table, but for pavement condition, and it's measured for good and poor, and it's for the interstate and the non-interstate system. And so you can see the Palm Beach County numbers for 2021, then the APDOT's targets for the state, and then the TPA's recommended targets for 23 and 2025. Staff is recommending that we move forward the statewide targets. In discussion with the state on these, again, they are setting the same targets they had last time for the state. And the reason being is they were originally measuring a lot of these parts of pavement condition different than what the federal standard became later on. And so they only have a few years of data when it comes to how they're measuring it in the current condition. And so based on that, they wanted to move forward again with setting the same targets. And that's what we're recommending for you all as well. And then the last measure is for you all today is system performance. And this is really a measure of travel time reliability on the national highway system. And so it's really, it's a more detailed calculation about how this comes up for each segment on the national highway system, but it's really asking like how reliable is your daily commute? So if you're traveling to work on I-95, which is on the NHS system during the daily AM peak travel time, and it's taking you, on average about 20 minutes to get along I-95, and then you look at that date versus other days on that your commute there. And if it's greater than 50% of your average commute, then it's considered unreliable. And so a lot of factors can play into that: weather, traffic jams, car crashes. And so here's the data for Palm Beach County. And so you can see the percent of reliable personal miles traveled on the interstate system in 2021, around 87%. On the non-interstate system, 97% for 2021. And then there's also a truck travel time reliability ratio on the interstate of 1.38. And you can see the state's targets for 23 and 25, and then the recommended TPA targets. Again, we're recommending as staff to go with the state targets. And speaking with Athon on this one as well, when it comes to how much data they have available to set onward trends, they really only have about 3 or 4 years of data when it comes to the data source they had from their providers for the source of this. And then last year with or a few years with pandemic, it's not really something they want to set trends off of. And so they're staying conservative with their targets. So maintaining the same targets they've had in the past. And that's what we're recommending for you all as well. Okay, and that's all I have for you. I can take any questions.
Okay, staff, are there public comments on this item?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So at this point in time, opening up to committee member comments. Kim.
Thanks for the presentation. Question for you. You can go back one slide. Oh, sorry. Try that again. Sorry. Kim Delaney from Treasure Coast RPC. Thank you for the presentation. I find this slide very compelling because we have lots of feedback from the public on occasion that the roadway network is jammed and you can't get anywhere. And gosh, the non-interstate national highway system, right, operates at 96.8% of the time in a reliable format. So I just wanted to kind of call that out. That's kind of a celebratory number if I'm interpreting it correctly. So I just thought I'd make that point for the record.
Do you mind if I respond as well?
Please.
I don't want to. You are correct on that. It is a high number. What's interesting about travel time reliability is that it's not really a measure of your time to get there. Overall, right? It's basically how reliable is that time to get there. So, if it takes you 20 minutes to go 1 mile every single day, and then one day it takes you 23 minutes to go 1 mile, it's still reliable. So that's how this measure has been calculated, and for good reason too, because you can sort of tackle these at different ways of increasing this measure's performance. So when it comes to traffic signal timing is a big one, right? So and then also clearing intersections of crashes, that can all help towards reliability. So it goes to more non-traditional ways of thinking about our roadway system.
Thanks for that. So I just, we get a lot of feedback that
For sure.
would suggest these figures would be different. But as we measure it by the numbers, if the distance and posted speeds produce an expected time to get from point A to point B, and you reliably can accomplish that, that's not a bad thing. I just thought I'd point that out.
Thank you. Next is Melissa and then Alex.
I had a couple observations, and to me, I'm not really sure it's a good idea, for example, to lower the bar when it comes to our maintenance program. I mean, if we're already meeting it at a high level, so earlier, at least the backup paperwork, I think you had some different numbers for the 2021, but number of bridges in good condition, if we're at 82% now, why would we lower the bar to half of our bridges we're going to allow to go to, I guess, I don't know what you would consider not good. Is that poor? So that I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that, understand why we're going in that direction. We're going to allow more things to fall apart.
This is a tough one, right? So when it comes to sort of setting these statewide measures, and then also sort of what we invest our money in as a agency here, a lot of the maintenance responsibilities when it comes to these falls mostly on the state. They are putting a lot of money into off the top when it comes to their maintenance obligations and meeting that. I don't know if I could speak so much more, have enough detail when it comes to why they continue to set sort of those levels of targets of like a 50 and a 10. It does get a little bit tough when you are comparing it to your own county, though, when we have such higher numbers. I don't really have anything else to add to for you, really.
Okay, well, similarly, I don't know if I can ask this now or do I need to wait for another?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
Similar for the travel time reliability. I understand, I guess you kind of talked about it a little bit, that the trend in 2021 and 2020, we really can't rely on, but still, it's the same observation. If, we're able to meet a certain threshold, why would we want to lower the bar again on reliability? We do get a lot of complaints about congestion and travel time related issues that, we on a daily basis. And so lowering the bar again, is just gonna, to me, create more issues. So I just wanted to understand that a little bit better. And you mentioned, I think, that you guys were these goals that were adopted or we're talking about adopting were from previous years. So we had already, I guess, accepted a 2% reliability. Is that what you meant? I'm talking
Oh,
about
for
travel time
bridge?
reliability now. Yes.
Reliability, I'm sorry.
So we're going from 1.75 to 2. So I was just curious
I'm sorry, yeah.
what you meant by that.
Sorry, yeah, that one's, unfortunately, that's a different one. It's just going with the travel time reliability ratio. So that one's for trucks. So 1.38. So that one's the only one that's not a percentage, that's a ratio on that one.
Right.
But you are correct. Yeah, it's going, what we're showing as targets is higher, worse performing than what our current actual is. Is that what you're?
I just wanted to understand, I guess, the 2%, I think you were saying, is what we had before, the 1.75
1.75 and 2, correct. Is what we had before,
was 2 or 1.75.
both. It was because there's targets for 2 years and 4 years.
Oh,
And so what you're seeing on the screen there is 1.75 and then 2025 of 2.
okay.
To make note, I didn't say this in the presentation, but when I say targets for 2023 and 2025, I'm talking about 2 years, right? Even though we're in 2023. The reason I'm saying that is because AFDOT, when they provided their targets, their data was, they based their baseline off of 2021. So they're setting 2-year targets for 23 and 2025, 2 and 4.
Okay, thanks.
But what we're stating is, it is a good point to make. When it comes, I'm going to say this, but when it comes to how this works for the more on a statewide level, the federal government's not looking at the MPOs when it comes to their performance. They're looking at the statewide totals and how well the state is meeting these performance measures. For the federal government, what they're looking for us is, did we actually set targets? Now, if we do set targets that are different than the state, we need to justify it and provide a plan to go on top of that, sort of supplement what the state's doing to ensure we're trying to meet these targets. That's sort of what the language is if you set a target different than the state.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I believe that FDOT,
I mean, I was just gonna go into a little bit about the state, right? And obviously ours is statewide, so the county could certainly adopt something a little more strict, but it was a point of clarification that we're not necessarily lowering the bar. There's nothing to say that we can't outperform the target if we have a target at 50%. But when you're talking about the bridges, the county bridges that are owned, obviously every bridge project is a huge investment. And when we say poor condition, we're not saying unsafe condition. There are processes in place to deal with a bridge that falls into an unsafe condition. So this is not related to that. And it's more related to the availability of resources, being able to program those. And if we set a target at 97% because we've reached 96, then when we go through and prioritize projects next year in the LOPP, we really need to be looking at the different criteria we set for all our areas. And that could, in theory, take up, Brant Bridge we just opened up, right? How much did that take if we have to funnel all our money towards a priority because we've established a super high criteria where it may not necessarily be, it's not unsafe. It's just, we've established a high performing criteria. So I think it's just a balance of making sure we have our criteria in line with our goals as a region. So.
Thanks, John. All right, next calling on Alex.
If you could go back to the following up on what Melissa brought up on the travel time reliability. So, oops, right there. So I was just curious. So the first line there is the percentage of reliable person miles traveled on the interstate. And the 2-year and 4-year targets, they'll be going down, right? There'll be 75% in 2 years, 70% in 4 years. But for trucks on that same network, our targets are actually going up. 1.7, the ratio, 1.75 in 2 years and 2 on 4 years. If it is the same network, I mean, it both is on the interstate. I'm just a little bit curious. Is it just because the expectation is that the number of trucks is just going to increase exponentially? I'm just trying to understand, how do we think that the reliable person miles travel is going to decrease, which is good, or in 2 year and 4 year, but we expect for the reliability ratio for trucks to increase over that same period, even if it is the same network. I'm just trying to understand the logic of that, of those targets.
Yep, I think the problem is it's sort of confusing, right? So that way we show it here, because they're a different travel time reliability measure, right? So for example, a perfect travel time reliability would be 100% when it comes to person miles traveled. For the truck travel time ratio, that's a measure of, I think it's like the 95th percentile divided by their 50th percentile of travel time. And it just stays as a ratio. It doesn't get converted to a percentage of reliability. So in that sense, a perfect reliable system for trucks would be a factor of 1, because you're just dividing one of your peak travel times during that was really delayed, divided by your 50 percentile. So getting closer to like a 2 would be double. It took double the time for you to for trucks to be on the that segment of
But still, the
roadway.
expectation is then it'll get a
Worse.
lot worse.
Correct. Both the targets are expecting worse.
Okay.
Or set worse targets. Yeah.
And then another question, in the backup that we received, there were 2 components to this item, to 2B. One was these targets that were just discussed, and then there's also the report card, which is 2B2. So I thought that now we're gonna get into a motion for are you gonna be presenting about, I have some questions on 2B2. So I just want to make sure, are you presenting and then we're gonna make a motion? Or are we making a motion on the 2 items separately?
From what I understand, Alex, this is all, this is one motion. This is all presented as part of the presentation from staff. There's no 2 separate motions that are necessary. It was the report card that was included as backup as part of this item.
Correct.
Staff, is this correct?
I have
Yeah,
questions
and
on the other one, but there hasn't been a presentation on
Yeah.
that one. So I'm just trying to figure out.
And for clarification, what you'll see in the backup is a draft resolution. That's really the action for today, is setting targets for these federal performance measures that we're required to set targets for. The report card is that full list of both federal and local performance measures that we have and the current status of those, like the grades that we have on those. And so that was for informational purposes, is because every February, this is around the time to come to you all to show an update of that.
But however, what I'm looking at, I'm reading, this is 2B2. Those seem to be local data that we have in here on 2B2. And I actually had some questions on the data that is here. To me, there are either errors here on the current data or on the old data. So I'm a little bit concerned about this. And again, if this is included in this item, I just want to make sure that we are not adopting something or recommending adoption of something where there may be some questions on the accuracy of the data. And this has to do primarily with the sidewalk data and then the modal split. So I don't know, again, if there's no presentation on that, I don't know if I can bring it up, because to me, the data, I'm a little concerned about the accuracy.
I mean, I don't have I think that the informational item that was presented as part of the report card and everything, the only action that's part of this particular board's responsibility is to, as Andrew said, adopt and take action on the resolution, which adopts specific measures of the federal performance targets. But the backup is all, if you want to make comments on
Yeah,
the
I just want
backup,
to
go
make a
ahead.
comment, because again, I have some concerns. This is the final table. This is again, item 2B2. This is the 2022 performance measures report card. There's a section there, complete streets, which is outlining, I guess, the center line miles of different infrastructure, bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. Last line there, sidewalks. For 2022, there's according to this, a reduction in the center line miles of sidewalks that we had compared to previous years. So if we read this, there were roads that in 2021 had sidewalks and now they do not. So we have been removing sidewalks over the last year, 40 miles of sidewalks in some roads. I hope that that is not the case. So I do not know, is the 2022 data incorrect? Is the earlier data incorrect? Because the expectation to me would be that if anything would be always adding miles of sidewalk. At the worst case scenario, keeping them, but not removing sidewalks. So that is the concern there with that data. The second one has to do with the modal split. I see a significant decrease over the last couple of years on biking. And just some anecdotal and studies that I've read regionally as well as nationally. Because of the pandemic, there was actually an increase of the number of people commuting by bike. So this is a significant decrease in the biking as a commuter mode in Palm Beach County. So I'm again also questioning the accuracy of the data. And this is shown again, 2020, 2021, the numbers are significantly lower to the numbers prior to that.
Staff, can you, I'm sorry, Andrew, Alex, can you clarify the 2B1, 2B2? Are those two separate action items that are needed, two presentations, or is this all part of
Just
the action
2B1,
that's needed for
2B
2B?
Yes, sorry. 2B1 is the action for you today. 2B2 is just that informational
Just
purposes.
the information.
I can respond to that if you'd like, and I can get some clarity. So for the sidewalks, a lot of our bicycle and pedestrian data, but mostly sidewalks, that's one that we continually try to increase accuracy on. And so that reduction was mostly from error from previous years. Because we're only looking, I think part of that was for federal aid eligible network. That's what we're trying to track. And I think the prior years might have had a little bit of the non-federal aid eligible network in there. And so that's why you see that reduction. We didn't want to just like keep it stagnant. You know, our final approach to it was to try to show it as accurately as possible for the data we have. So most of that reduction is because of issues in data.
My suggestion would be to include a note if we're
Sure.
using maybe two different sources of data or there's changes, because again, it's not good. But if it is not good just because we're now using different data, more accurate data, then at least there's an explanation for that issue. And I do not know about the bicycle commuter split, and you may not have the answer, but again, it's just something I want to highlight it because it seems counter to what we have seen in a lot of other data sources, both regional in our region as well as national over the last 2-3 years.
And I don't have a response to the trend there about why, but the data is accurate. It also caught my eye, and so we went back and looked as well. But for those, I want to mention that we are to be more accurate with, or more precise, I guess, with the data from the American Community Survey. We use the 5-year estimates for those, but still the trend is downward when it comes to biking mode split, as well as walking and transit.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Next is Naresh.
Yeah, again, regarding travel time performance measures, I have a couple of thoughts and questions. Listening to your presentation, to me, I understand you're saying a person mile is reliable as long as we meet that 50% average travel time. Based on my understanding, there are different ways to compute the travel time reliability. 96.8% we are meeting just to average 50% travel time, for example, taking Okeechobee as an example in the peak hours. One question is it computed just for the peak hours or peak period 7 to 9 or 7 to 10, 7:30 to 8:30? The reason I would ask that question, Okeechobee, if you are traveling from it west end to east end between 7 to 10, if you take the average travel time, even on a Google Maps and applications like that, for planning purposes, the travel time, it would say anywhere between 10 minutes to 33 minutes. Maybe our target here, we are only looking at the average, maybe 17 minutes. And we are saying we are meeting 50%, target value 96% of the time. What it also means during the peak hour, most of the people are on the other side of the 50%, more closer to the 85th percentile travel time and 95th percentile travel time. So they wouldn't be always experiencing what people traveling 8:30 to 9 or 8 to 8:30, they would always take 25 minutes on Okeechobee. That means they're always outside the target line. Probably one of the suggestions for the state to look at different ways of computing travel time reliability, maybe from 50%, now look at 85th percentile value and 95th, or maybe introduce planning time index as one of the target. Because if we would be planning the projects to meet 50% value, that also telling we implement the new project on day one, we wouldn't be looking at operational conditions favorable during the peak hour because we are planning for 50% always. So my suggestion would be start looking at other factors as well, 85th percentile TTI, maybe planning time index. And I think another dialogue would be, yeah, we got the target values and how would we tie to planning our projects? As a system wide, probably would be meeting the value, and how do we take this and work with each agency and identifying the hotspots? Is that going to be one of the factors when we put in the applications and programming the projects? Implementing any improvements on those critical values where it's exceeding travel time reliability, would they get extra points in the selection criteria so that we can target our projects to really bring it down, matching the planning level values to real operational expectations, so we can bridge a better gap between planning to operations. So that would be my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Vicky, did you have a comment or are you okay?
Well, it may have been addressed. I'm not sure. I just, these performance measures make the area look really rosy. And, to Kim's comment on reliability. So if it takes me 10 minutes to drive or 15 minutes, say, to drive 4 miles, which I'm thinking of my commute, in normal times, say pre-COVID or whatever. And then, a few years later, it takes me twice as much or longer, but I know that, so I set out 20 minutes earlier. Is that what you mean by reliability? Because how then do we account for, the degradation in quality of life with that congestion? Where is that recorded? This makes it look, the fact that I can factor in an extra 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or even on the interstate, a couple of hours sometimes. That's, I don't know that, yeah, I can rely on the fact that there'll be heavy congestion, but is that a good condition? So that's.
Okay, thank you. Staff, do you have any final comments to address some of the board's comments?
Sure. I mean, I can send out it should be on our website too, but there's the document that details how everything's measured, right? So for example, travel time reliability, it's measured in different time periods, right? So there's AM peak, there's midday, there's a PM peak, and there's a weekend one. So there's a data document out there that we can provide if that would be a bit helpful for you all. It is being updated right now, but it's current as of April 2022. So it might answer some of these questions about more detailed how we measure performance measures.
Yes, go ahead, Naresh.
One final question is, are there any thoughts about adding another performance measure that's takes out the transit component, look at how transit is doing in addition to the regular.
Yep, that's a good segue before you all vote, but in our LRTP, we'll be looking at all of our performance measures and seeing which ones are the most effective to set targets for and measure year to year. We do currently have one in there when it comes to just using Census American Community Survey data when it comes to the travel time by transit per commuter versus the average travel time by single occupancy vehicle. It's just a ratio. We also, I think it's our main one, and we might have some other transit efficiency measures we do, but not related to travel time, but we can work with Palm Train on setting whatever their best metric is. And if that needs to be updated, we can do that in LRTP in the next year and a half.
Okay, are there any other comments from any of the committee members? Seeing none, I would like a motion, please, or is there a motion to recommend adoption for targets of federal performance measures?
I make a motion that we adopt it.
Okay, a motion made by Aaron Hoffman. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Chris. I don't, staff, do you think we need to do roll call on this one? Or just,
We can try just a
all right, let's
verbal
just try
vote.
it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? So for the record, Melissa Eckert from Palm Beach County opposing.
I will also add that Jonathan Reinsvold from Village of Wellington is absent at this time.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe he's back. That's okay. If you want to say aye or nay, aye. Okay, thank you.
So just the one opposed staff.
Passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this time, that completes our action items. So we are moving on to item 3, informational items. At this
Before we
time, I
do
am
that-
going to pass the gavel to Kim Delaney to serve as the
Can
chair.
I just add something real quick? Usually when somebody votes no, staff calls them the next day and asks why they voted no. Is it appropriate to ask that question now to save you a call?
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa, if you wanted to share your reason for voting no.
Sure. I mean, based on my questions, I don't think there's enough information for me to support the reduction in our goal to allow bridges, for example, to be maintained at a lower level of service, essentially. And also the conversation about reliability. I think it wasn't explained well enough on why we're allowing reliability to suffer. That's why I didn't agree.
Personally, I just want to say thank you for doing that because it allows staff or it allows this to go on public record as to why you oppose no. And I think if, as a lesson to all of us, if we say that we're going to vote no in advance of a vote, it'll help other of us galvanize our positions as well. Because I have a feeling that you supported or said so in such a way before the thing, you probably would have got more support and like there would have been more than one no. So anyways, thank you guys.
Real quick, and I apologize if I may interject. According to Robert's Rules of Order, I don't believe you're supposed to or allowed to say how you're going to vote before the vote happens. It's canvassing and you trying to galvanize support. People should just vote their conscience and make their statements on what they believe during the discussion and then vote their conscience. So I don't think you can announce your vote in advance of the vote.
Cheat sheet.
Thanks. I appreciate the note.
I think we may need to create a new position, the parliamentarian. That's going to be Terrence. So,
Okay. All right. So this is one that was carried over from our last meeting. Can also be complicated. I'm going to try to make it easy for you. So every year after the end of a fiscal year, so we get this after the end of the fiscal year, we get it around in October. We get the amounts of federal obligations from that prior fiscal year. And we get this from FDOT. So where do we spend money on our projects? And so this is what this report is. And what we try to provide in the report is that prior fiscal year. So in this case, it was fiscal year 2022. We try to provide what was programmed for federal funds in that fiscal year, and then what was finally obligated, right? So what was committed to being reimbursed for those. And then you'll also see down the line, sometimes there's a de-obligation. And that's when, you know, the product was obligated, the funds were obligated to spend, but they weren't totally all spent for whatever reason, and they have to be de-obligated at times. And so that's what you'll see as negative numbers in the report. But what we try to provide is what do we program and how much did we actually spend that year? This gets a little bit tough and confusing because we're only showing federal funds that are being obligated. So we don't show you state funds that are being obligated. That's not a requirement that the state has to provide that to the MPOs. So really you're only seeing part of the picture, and it can be difficult sometimes because funds can swap around, right? So sometimes FDOT may put federal funds on another project and swap it with state funds. That could be a reason why you might not see something obligated. Another one would be maybe you were going to have it, you have a program in the year and then it was never obligated because of it being delayed for some reason. For example, State Road 7, that was a project that was programmed in the current year. Didn't actually go to construction, didn't get obligated. And that would be one that would show up as a programmed amount, but not an obligation. And then lastly, and I have an example for this one, it's ones where there might be a state funding source where they're looking to get that reimbursed later on with federal funds, and those are called advanced construction. So I have an example for you on that one. So sometimes when you look at the full work program and then our TIP document, the 5-year program, you'll see a bunch of products with a funding code that has AC in front of it, and that's called advanced construction. It's for multiple federal programs, but those are actually state funds that the state is putting on projects to later reimburse back with federal funds. That reimbursement doesn't always happen right away. It can be years down the road. So for example, in this report that was provided to you today, you're going to see $7 million in National Highway Performance Program funds for I-95 at Glades Road. And the TIP itself doesn't have anything programmed for federal funds in fiscal year 2022. The reason why that happens is because way back in an earlier version of the Transportation Improvement Program, in this case, 2019, we saw that the state had programmed advanced construction National Highway Performance Program funds. And this is now them reimbursing a little bit of that funding a few years later. So they'll pop up in the report, even though we don't really show it programmed in the current fiscal year. And this gets really complicated to try to track that over time. So that's why it can look a little bit weird in your backup in our summary. And then here's just the summary of all of our sections in the TIP. Again, going from programmed, what is obligated for fiscal year 2022, what were amounts de-obligated, and then what's really that difference overall. So one of the bigger ones it looks like that was programmed in TIP was we have SIS capacity. $115 million was programmed, but really only obligated 18 million of that. I believe that big difference you see there is a product that didn't go all the way to construction for fiscal year 2022. I believe it's the Beeline Highway project. But that's an example of one where you'll see it pop up in a future year as programmed, but they really didn't get going all the way on the product with that schedule. So that's why they didn't really obligate a lot for that project. And that's really all I have for you. I can take any questions.
Okay, questions from the group, Vicky.
Just a point of clarification for me. So are these funds obligated and reimbursed, or simply obligated and not necessarily reimbursed yet?
That's a good question. So you're saying, are they obligated and reimbursed? The obligation is them having the authorization to spend down the funds.
Right.
So I'm thinking about more of a like a local project. I don't know if that also means it's the reimbursement.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe it is.
I just
as
wanted to
well.
understand the report itself, how what the report itself is showing. So if it's just showing the obligated, you get a project, you apply for a project now, it's programmed in 25, and then funds are obligated to the project. So I guess that's what this is showing.
Right, so my understanding is that when it gets obligated, that's that contract where they have the ability to now spend down those funds.
Okay.
They're in an
thank you.
account, they can spend those down.
Thanks.
So I don't know if it's always like a reimbursement.
That answer your question, Vicky? Yes, Alex?
Just as a note, and I think we had pointed it out previously, Javier Falcone had, there seems to be some discrepancies between the amounts in this table and other documents as far as the West Palm Beach project related to trolleys. We thought we had addressed that discrepancy and we were told that it was X number. This is showing the other number. So we can discuss it afterwards, but I just want to put it out there that this table here appears to show an incorrect amount on this trolley project on West Palm Beach.
All right, Jason?
Yes, forgive me, I'm not familiar with all the rules and regulations governing these funds, but I'm just curious, what happens to the remaining funds? There's quite a large amount, and specifically for the local initiatives and the transportation alternatives programs, is there ability to, redistribute or increase some of the projects that are obligated for with those remaining funds?
Sure. I could say for when it comes to those, they typically are handled within that fiscal year, right? So, and we've actually had a few examples of those. It really tries to balance out in for all projects in the work program. But for example, if a project came under for local initiatives with those SU funds under the actual cost they needed for reimbursement, those would be transferred to another local initiative project that maybe be having a shortfall. So it's really about trying to deliver projects, but it has to be within that fiscal year. So in this case, it was fiscal year 2022. So those funds had to be used within that fiscal year on another project. Hopefully that answers.
Yes, thank you.
Clear as mud, we're good? It's a confusing, I mean, it's challenging to kind of rationalize how the numbers are positioned, I think, in the documentation, so. But other questions from the group?
Yes, I had a question. Jonathan Ransel, Village of Wellington. We have several projects that are coming online for fiscal year 2025 and beyond. And I know we did the cost estimates, and I'm just going to echo what Jason was just telling you. We're seeing cost of 2x, 2.5x, 1.75x, just somewhere around that area where, just to say it bluntly, we're seeing project costs that are going to be hard to afford in the future. So we're looking to you all to see if more, basically more money can be distributed to fund these projects. I don't want to say otherwise they're going to go kaput, but otherwise it's going to be very challenging, to say the least, to get them going. Yeah, so just want to echo that. I feel like probably most people that have TPA grants and other local initiative grants around here are probably feeling the same pain that we are.
Do you mind if I respond as well?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we actually saw a few of those more recent ones in fiscal year 22 and 23 had significant cost increases. At the same time, we did get an influx of new federal funds. And so we were able to fund a few more expenses when it came to those. So more than was originally needed for reimbursement. Right now, our local initiatives program, we capped that one at $5 million. And then our transportation alternatives now is $1.5 million. But we continue to try to get ahead of that and figure those out as early as possible. So, not waiting. I'm not sure when in your process you're looking to have a updated cost estimate, but that's always helpful to get that early on, as soon as possible, if those things are changing. Because if you wait, let's say you have a cost estimate in the system to FDOT 5 years from now, and then it comes all the way up to design now, and you're finally updating that cost estimate, it's a lot larger. it might be getting kind of late then at that time to try to get you some additional funds. So if you're already seeing that, foreseeing this issue, we can try to factor it in a little early on.
Yeah, we are. We're doing our, our budget planning for our capital, budget planning for 5 years and beyond, 5 to 10 year capital improvement plan. And some of these projects that we're seeing are showing up already in our, 2025, 2026, and I think 2027, we have projects lined up. And one of them, in fact, was moved forward at the request of the FDOT lab coordinator. So we'll be letting a couple big ones, big as far as the Village of Wellington is concerned, in 2025. And we're seeing project costs, for instance, Greenview. We have a bike lane project, and we put in for, I think the construction cost was 1.3 mil, and we did that estimate back in 2019. And we all know what's happened since 2019. And I recently redid that cost estimate, and it came back in at about 2.8 million. So I'm seeing over a 2x factor on the project cost on this one. And internally we've discussed it, and we said, well, we might have an issue. So we're just kind of throwing that out there to see if there's anything that can be done on project cost for these types of projects. Because I mean, we would love to move them forward, obviously, and we have no desire not to move them forward, but we also have a desire not to break the bank.
Yeah. And one follow-up for that is it gets tough in the system because there's lots of products in there. And they're all changing their cost estimates, and we don't always know how much money we have still left. FDOT's moving things around all the time to try to get these things built, and given to the locals. And so what we've told FDOT to sort of do is, consider how much you're getting reimbursed now, what is a reimbursable expense, and then try to spread it around in a fair way when it comes to spread it to all these different municipalities. And that's what we've done for 22 and 23.
Jason?
Yeah, just circling back on my original question of what happens to the remaining funds. I'm not sure you answered that. And I look specifically at local initiatives, $8.5 million. Where does that money go back into the pool? Like, what happens to it if it's not redistributed to other projects?
I would say it would be redistributed to other projects in that timeframe.
Okay.
It will be.
So
Are you seeing a discrepancy in the amount program versus the?
Well, it says programmed, 23 million, obligated 15.8, funds remaining 8.5. So.
I'm gonna have to look into the details more about specifically for those projects and see what's going on for that amount. Because I'm not sure if maybe this didn't get caught in the obligation report but FDOT's trying to spend every SU dollar we have towards our projects in fiscal year 23. So those were redistributed on TPA priorities. But I can follow up and see what happened with that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Andrew? Okay, moving on to Florida Bicycle Month. I think Valentina is going to come up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. For those of you that might not know me, my name is Valentina Facus. I'm the pedestrian bicycle coordinator for the Palm Beach TPA. And for today's presentation, I'll be going over some of the activities and events that we'll be doing for Florida Bicycle Month for the month of March. So just as a quick refresher, Florida Bicycle Month is really an opportunity to get everyone to showcase some of the benefits of bicycling. Also, as transportation professionals, it would be a good opportunity to highlight some of the best practices when it comes to designing protected bicycle facilities. So here are 4 different ways that you can get involved for that month. The first one is to adopt a proclamation. As you may or may not know, the TPA adopts a proclamation every single year, and we encourage municipalities to do the same. We also have a couple of activities and events coming up. We have a webinar, we have our annual TPA group ride, and along with other activities. So as I stated previously, the TPA does adopt a proclamation every year. We do encourage every municipality to do the same. In the agenda packet with you today, you will see attached a sample proclamation that you can use to adopt a proclamation. On the screen before you, you'll see 13 municipalities and agencies that have adopted a proclamation for last year. And for this year, our goal is to have at least 15 municipalities to adopt a proclamation. So highly encourage everyone to do that. And if you need any help modifying the language, I can help with that. So every year, we know that the city of West Palm Beach usually does a bike to work week for Bicycle Month. Florida Bicycle Month, along with the village of Palm Springs and all over Palm Beach County. So if your municipality or agency will be conducting any activities throughout that month, please let us know so that we can promote it. So speaking of events, one of the events that we'll be having is a live webinar March 7th, where I will be presenting on safe bicycling. And for that webinar, I'll just be going through some of the bicycle state laws, the benefits of safe bicycling, and more. And for that, you can register at palmbeachtpa.org/events. And more exciting events, our annual TPA group ride will be March 31st. Please get there at 7:30 a.m. if you're planning on attending, to get everyone checked in and sign the liability forms. For this ride in particular, we will be starting at the TPA headquarters, making our way through downtown West Palm Beach, and then making our way back to the TPA office. So if you would like to register for that, you can visit palmbeachtpa.org/events. And that concludes my presentation. I could take any questions at this time.
Questions, Valentina? If you haven't gotten your proclamation adopted yet, go ahead, Jason.
Just curious how long the ride is, like lengthwise.
Yes, great question. So it's a 3.2 mile ride. So maybe 30 minutes at most.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, super. Other questions from the group? No, moving on. Okay, administrative items. Right, thanks, Valentina. Administrative items are informational. There aren't presentations for them, but the package includes governing board points, the scheduling report, the bike ped quarterly crash report, and our next meeting is March 1st, 2023. Just in thinking about the discussion, just to point out to the group as a reminder, and the council's trying to figure out the role in helping coordinate this. If you recall from the liaisons report, we have $3 trillion in federal infrastructure dollars looking for a place to go. All right, Florida's the #1 growth state in the nation. There are half a dozen grant opportunities, substantial grant opportunities that are summarized with webinars and opportunities to kind of get together and figure out a game plan for the region. And so we'll reach out to TPA staff and look for an opportunity to pull that together, because I know our board's given us that direction to try to kind of bring that conversation together. 3 projects partnered together becomes a regional project. It scores significantly differently in the grant application cycle. So look for a friendly email from your friendly people planning council to try to coalesce some projects around those opportunities. Other questions from the group? Again, next meeting, right? Next meeting is March 1st. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
All right. Doug Hess, who was the original TAC chair when I started, used to say, "All those in favor, please rise." So I give a little shout out to Doug, who did it.